tonight's webinar. We're going to just start right in. I'm going to say my little prayer of gratitude, and we'll start. Thank you to the soul of the universe, the source of everything in creation, the birther of the multiverse, Ma, for being this live webinar and for being everything, all the beings, for being everyone's ancestors and the divinity in all of us, for blessing our webinar tonight with the ability to work concisely and effectively and profoundly to support the intention of the webinar and to impart all the technologies and understandings to everybody required to support our ability to work at maximum capacity. Thank you to the eternal tradition of wisdom for being that source of creation, that source of the flow of wisdom in creation, without which none of this would be happening. Thank you, everyone. All right. Okay. So tonight's webinar is about exploring subtle, I'll just check my little thing here. I believe it's about exploring subtle realms of existence and energy healing for that. So this is exciting. When I first came up with this idea, I had the thought that oh, this will be easy. I've been working in this area for 10 years at least, or really 40 years since the very beginning, and even down to my childhood, I've been familiar with this area of creation. So this is going to be easy. But when I put my attention on it, it was interestingly more detailed and more fascinating even than I thought it was. So I'm very excited about all the information to share with everyone today. And let's just go ahead and begin. I think I'm gonna move this slightly so I'm oriented towards group 2. All right. So back when I was a student in college, I majored in art, and I noticed back then that if I spend my day looking at colors and shapes and designs, that by the end of the day, my senses of perception were more acute. And so I realized what we need to do in this webinar is what we will be doing today is we'll be looking into those fine realms of creation in a very intensive way for about an hour or so, hour 15 minutes, in order to refine and enhance the ability to appreciate and perceive what's going on at the fine level of creation. And the reason for this is because there's been an ancient tradition of individuals looking for awakening and looking for mastery over all the laws of nature by going into caves and sitting with their eyes closed for hours and not really engaging in the world. And this has been a time-tested, traditional, and effective way of allowing an individual's consciousness to expand to infinity and allowing them to integrate their experiences of finer states of reality. However, most of the people on Earth are not in a position to go sit in a cave. And additionally, those who sit in caves aren't really very concerned about, they don't really care that much about what's going on in the rest of the world. So that's not us. We're in the world. So it's important that we have another way of approaching the process. And that way is refinement. Refinement of the physiology, refinement of thinking, refinement of the senses, refinement of perception, refinement of knowledge. So that's what we're doing today, is we're going to refine, we're looking to refine. Now, everybody's pretty familiar with my roadmap, my Y-X axis on the grid of reality or whatever, that we're at the denser level, we have our physical form, and then at finer levels, more delicate, more refined levels of physiology, and we get down to the source of creation. The area where the healing mechanisms and the healing potential and the healing capabilities arise is in that warmed up paraprakriti level of creation. That's where all the resources are sitting. And the whole infinite field of infinite unmanifest being source of creation is a field of pure potential. And it's that warmed up segment, which is where we experience ourselves and everything, ourselves as everything and everything, as the manifestations of a level of intelligence that's capable of doing anything. So that's where we're going to hang out today and look at the fine dynamics of how that level of creation interfaces with the physical material level. We got a little bit of a late start this morning, so I'm just going to check out into the group here and just checking in with everybody and sort of stabilizing up. I'm using my fine senses right now to kind of see how everybody's doing and stabilize up the coherence of our healing circle. Thank you, everyone, for being with me. So sweet. All right. Going into this level of creation, what we find is that just at the gap where finest warmed up level of manifested, unmanifest being starts to interface with the relative, we start to get a dichotomy of energy expressions. And you get I think I mentioned in the last webinar, probably, the light fields of creation and the dark fields of creation, and that these two qualities of consciousness work together. They push and pull the field of consciousness in opposite directions in order to churn that field of consciousness and to support the manifestation of creation. And that our role as humans is to be able to straddle that entire range of expression of creation, all the way from the darkest, deepest, most demonic forms to the brightest, lightest, most angelic forms. And our role, our job, if we want to achieve the goal of being that vehicle for the expression of divine being, then we want to maintain balance, state of perfect balance between the dark and the light, so that those two sides of creation can do their job. There's an old quote. There's a quote from my teacher, Maharishi. He said that the enlightened man gains benefit even from the destructive laws of nature. So, it means that there's all the laws of nature are just laws of nature. All those forces, the ones that break everything down, the ones that build everything up. So the enlightened man stays. We want to stay. We all want to all be the enlightened person and stay in that central point. At this point in the webinar, I wanted to tie this in a little more practical way with the events in Las Vegas, because we have a nice big crew with us tonight from Las Vegas. Yay, shout out to Las Vegas. In a previous video, I pointed out that the way the land structures and the intelligences of Earth are in the Las Vegas area, they support the understanding and comprehension of the very most profound and fine mechanics of manifestation. And this is why people travel from all over America, all over the world, to that area to try their luck at manifesting great wealth instantly. This is the nature of that part of creation. It wasn't a surprise. It was, of course, horribly disappointing and upsetting, but it wasn't a surprise what happened this week with the massacre in Las Vegas, because what happens is the negative laws of nature rise first. They say, oh, we're going to get you first. And then the positive forces of nature come to meet them, and then balance is created and wholeness is established. So what happened prior to the accident, I shouldn't say it was an accident, but the intended discord in Las Vegas was that there was a great opening that took place. I don't know how many of you were noticing, but in about a couple weeks earlier, there's a great it's a holy days in India called Navaratri, which is the time when the source of creation comes very, very deeply into the manifest level of reality and takes out all the darknesses and imbalances and negativities that we have that build up over the course of a half a year. And this particular year, what I noticed was an amazing upsurge of very intense energy. Very, I would say at our house, we were riding an adrenaline roller coaster over here that week, because the source of creation was coming forward with a desire to create a transformation of such profound impact on the whole world. The souls of our world, the soul of humanity has been deeply desiring a big shift in the administration of the world. And this is what was happening here. We were going through step by step by step. It actually started even a month before that. Step by step, what does it take? What are the details of moving the power structure over into the realm of those individuals who are sincerely stewards of our world and sincerely stewards of humanity. Those individuals, and let the Mother of the Universe decide who are those individuals who deserve that responsibility, and allow that shift to take place. So that was already happening on the level energetically during the time that the man whose name I don't even know, because I didn't go that far into the news, he was planning his act. While he was planning his act. And when it broke to the surface, it's no surprise that it broke to the surface at that point in the US, where the laws of nature are specifically designed, are most, I would say, aligned with the manifesting process, maximally aligned. And what it means is that also in Las Vegas, also the individuals who are there holding that sacred silence and holding the space of purity and goodness have a rare and amazing opportunity, and so do the people of the US, because as we know, Las Vegas is a place where many people come from everywhere, United States and the world. These weren't necessarily local people. These were people from all over the US. And that what it does is that horrible, horrible breaking and destruction opened the door for a level of goodness and support and love and purity and capability to come forth like it has never, ever come forth before. And this is a great, it's a great example of what happens even in an individual person's life when tragedy strikes, that the negativity comes up because what happens is we strike our balance, okay? And as I'm saying this, I'm checking out into the group and we're making sure that the balance point is very, very delicately adjusted and tuned, because we're going to start to dive into the fine levels of creation. So that fine tuning. So individual, oh, of course, this is a little hello from Las Vegas here. Bless you. Sorry, you gave me chills when you put your hand up, sweetheart. We go to the fine tuning, and what happens is in that state of fine tuning, we have the negatives and the positives, but it's like the engine is little. It's like when a kid is little, he like builds his Legos. And then when he gets bigger, he can like fix things on his bike. And when he gets bigger, he can work on his moped. And when he gets bigger, he can like fix a car engine. And when he gets really big and really masterful, he can like build an engine for an airplane. So this is what we're doing. We start out with our balance. We go like, okay, I got my life together. I've got myself in balance, but I can deal with this much negativity and this much positivity. And we work with that until we feel really comfortable. And then what happens is negativity goes, oh yeah, we'll balance this. And then we are like, oh, I have to come meet that much negativity with this much positivity. And so then then we work with that for a while and we find our way back. You know, we kind of like dig our way out of the dramas, right? And find our way back to balance. Okay, I can work with an engine this big. And then creation goes, oh yeah, but try this one on for size. And then you've got to come meet it again. And this is what our world was given. This is what was created. It is horrible. I know it was horrible, but I just want to say that Las Vegas is that great center where this only could have happened. We love you. You did it. You are the caretakers, the stewards of this part of our world that has these particular laws of nature for manifestation. And what we're doing is we're stepping up to the plate to manifest a higher level of world administration by individuals who actually care, by individuals who have the skill set to bring in so much purity and so much goodness and so much refinement that decisions that are made that influence everyone are decisions that are made in favor of maximum resources and opportunities for everyone on earth. We can do it. We're doing it. This is what we're doing. So that was my Las Vegas. I love you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being awesome. Okay, so on that note, we did the refinement of the balance. Now, I'm just checking into that field, that very, very deep field of creation where the manifestations of the finest expressions of being reside. We can call it the rasa, because this is the field of the flavors of life. That on the surface, we see things, and then deeper down, oh look, I have a thing, we have a thing, we have a cup. But on the surface, it's hard and it's orange, but it has a reality at a deeper level, which is a unique personality, you could say. It has a unique personality, as does everything. And that's the level of flavor. That's that very, very fine level of consciousness where everything is still in a manifested form. The flavor is still a manifested form, and yet it is not physical. It is not physical manifestation. And what I'm feeling, and here I'm just reading now, I'm just reading through everybody's physiology. What I'm feeling is that balance is moving deep down into the physiology, down into the digestive tract, down into the core of the body, down into the spine, and the communication of what is that level of balance that is necessary in order to dive as a collective into the finest field of manifestation and really see and understand the nature of reality at that level. Oh, I feel, and some people are like, yes, I'm ready, I'm there, I'm looking. So thank you for those of you who are at that space, and everybody. And as I said, this was the point that it was very interesting when I was thinking about how are we going to manifest this webinar today. What's happening is I'm now off my script. I'm off my script, and we're just writing. What we're doing is in our collective, in our healing circle, we have a small being has come to join us. Anyway, in our healing circle, we have created a form. What I'm seeing is that our astral bodies, which are a protective, there's the astral body, protective level of the physiology, at the astral level of our collective, there's a coordination that's taking place at that level, and the balance energy is moving into the astral body. And that's going to support everybody's ability to stay in that lovely divine space of wholeness and stability as we move collectively into this field, into this realm of all finest level of being. This is beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I'm just going to tell you what I see. I get to be your other eye open. And what I'm seeing is we are in a space of light, but the light has varying qualities to it. And there is definitely a center of light. There's a great, huge, huge sacred center, the center sun. I think this is what they call the center sun. This great, huge embodiment of inner light, which is the emanating source of life force for all beings in creation. And so what we're doing as our collective, because we're moving together as a group now, like we're on a ship, our astral bodies coordinated so that we could be very coherent. And that bowing down to that great light, sacred center of light of creation. And as that bowing down or that gratitude and acknowledgement of that takes place, what I'm seeing is that center sun is just, it's starting to burst with a lot of energy and a lot of light. And it's responding or replying to our love and our gratitude with a kind of a feeding of knowledge and wisdom, knowingness to the whole, not just to us, but to the whole creation. So I'd like to move with the knowingness for a moment. A lot happened just at that one move of giving our loving gratitude. When the beams of life force expression emanated from the center sun, it also formed a grid and it lit up the Akashic record, which has many nodes. And it's interesting, I've looked many times at the Akashic record, but it seems every time we go to look, more wisdom and more knowledge, more deeper perception of what that looks like comes out. And what I'm seeing is so interesting, that the nature of the Akashic record is not to put all the eggs in one basket. We think of it as a single thing, right? The Akashic record. But that's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing something that looks like a great kind of matrix-like grid, and all these nodes, and everywhere there's a node in this massive grid, there is knowingness. And there is detail, there's knowledge, there's wisdom at each node. And so it's the knowledge of the Akashic record is held systemically through the subtle field of creation. It's not all like conglomerated into a single space. What I do see is that the archive of the original templates of the Akashic record are concentrated, but they seem to be concentrated in that, right, like a skin around that sacred sun. And those are the forms of the Akashic record before they came forth and actually took shape. Beautiful. So they form, I'm asking beings, so they form a kind of a spherical type of shape. And these waves of knowingness that emanate from the center sun come through those templates. Fascinating. But yet the templates, this is what's fascinating to me, is the templates remain unformed. They remain formless. They remain in such a state of purity. It's like they are in perfect balance. They are each in perfect balance. They are all those nodes, if you want to call them nodes, or potential structures of creation. Beautiful. All right. So in our healing circle, in our group, the waves of knowingness are being received by the physiology. There have been adjustments made in the physiologies during the time we've been talking, and one of those has to do with the skeletal system. I found out from one exquisite woman who is on the webinar tonight that the skeletal system is represented in Jyotish, which is an ancient form of astrology, as the bones represent the sun. They represent the sun. And we know the sun is like the administrator of the solar system. It's the boss. It's the king. It's the king of the solar system. And it also represents father. And father, we know, represents culture and order and protection and these qualities that were unfortunately lacking at last Sunday night, Monday morning in Las Vegas. These were the qualities that we're bringing now. And of course, in a state of balance, because as these energies of structure and order and culture and protection, as they start to activate up in our systems and activate in the skeletal system, this means an upgrade for the intelligence of the skeletal system. As this happens, we maintain that point of balance between the darkness of the tragedy and the light of these qualities of consciousness, which are the antidote to the tragedy. And I'm feeling the energy turning. I'm feeling there's a, it was left, there are threads and calcifications of energy structures that are in that space in Las Vegas where this event took place. And these are sitting ready, they're sitting ripe to be transformed by this energy. And they are sitting as nodes of manifestation, seeds of manifestation, because this is what Las Vegas offers, the creation offers the whole world, is that it's like a archive of seeds of manifestation. So the negativity is sitting there, but what it does is when it's met with what we could think of as the fertilizer and the sunshine and the rain of knowingness, then that negativity transforms from that structure which pulls life down into, it's like part of the engine. It provides the contrast, okay, that shines light on the energies of structure that we're bringing forth. And so it supports that flow. As long as those little nodes are there, they will continue to feed energy to create contrast to the structure which is coming forth, that our group is both receiving and giving to this situation. We're receiving those values of knowingness as they come into the body. They affect the skeletal system. One of the beauties of this is that, the skeletal system is not only the producer of the constituents of blood, but it is also the producer of hormones and amino acids. And it holds calcium and phosphorus. It's a storage place for calcium, phosphorus, and other very important materials that we need to support life and to support the health of the physiology. So this activation for the skeletal system, this upgrade for the skeletal system, is a tremendous support for the whole physiology. It interfaces first with the circulatory system, right? Well, it also interfaces with the muscular system and so forth, but the movement, the transport of materials between the bone marrow, where the constituents of blood are produced, and hormones, and so they interface with the circulatory system. The circulatory system is the pulse of life. And that's one of the values that we are interfacing here. We are experiencing ourselves both from an individual level, as I talk about the physiology and the intelligence of these systems. These are the Davic intelligences of the physiology, with the center sun and our state of being sitting in the radiant brilliance of the center sun, is that the flow of knowingness is presented. It is radiated through various rhythmic patterns, rhythms within rhythms within rhythms within rhythms. So there's a pulse, like the heart, there's a pulse. And so this is creating a balanced alignment for the circulatory system of the physiology right now for all of us. It's very interesting. Research shows that when musicians sit and create music collectively, that their hearts beat in synchrony. Now, I don't know if any research has been done on making music together, I mean, on brainwaves synchrony, but I wouldn't be surprised if we did EEG on musicians. We would find that their brainwaves also move in synchrony. So as our collective, what we're doing is we're aligning up our synchrony, both within the group and also with that center pulse from the center sun of creation, from the center, that source of all the beings of creation. And it's very interesting because as the skeletal system aligns, and as the circulatory system aligns, also the endocrine system, because we know those bones, they're making those lovely hormones in balance. What's happening is our physiologies are refining, and they're refining in such a way that we are able to, in an honorable fashion, move with some autonomy and freedom through the realms of creation where all the fine beings reside. With greater ease, with greater freedom and flexibility. So I'm just looking at that, and I'm watching these sort of ripples of knowingness. We've been receiving ripples of knowingness, right? Radiance of knowingness from the center sun. Now radiance of knowingness is moving out from our collective. And what's being communicated to the beings, that level of being that is very refined, that is not physical, is that within the context of a physical physiology, this is possible. What we're doing, this is very groundbreaking work, you guys. You guys, we're doing it. This, I know that within the context of a human physiology, it is possible to reorganize the flesh of the body, the physiology of the body, in such a way as to so acutely align with the balance of creation that we can move in those circles of function that are normally reserved for just the laws of nature, or just those great beings of creation who administrate and oversee vast activities of the universe. So, and it's all right. I'm waiting for an answer, because we just sent a wave out to them. So I'm waiting to see. So what's happening is a wave of acknowledgement and gratitude, like the wave that we sent out in the first place to the sacred sun, is coming back to us. This wave of acknowledgement and gratitude. It's like a sense of, oh, we've been waiting a really long time for you as a collective to be able to function in this manner so that we can start to move into our next level. So the first thing that's happening is, well, this is very exciting. So the first thing that's happening is I'm seeing an activation of celestial energy all around our group, all around the outside, inside, around the structure of the group. And this, this sort of thick, like a cushion of celestial energy is itself the bodies of beings that we would think of like angels, like very fine beings, very sweet beings. And it's like a big sort of cushion around our group. That's so sweet. So what's happening is our group is expressing on a fine level the excitement and the sweetness and the gratitude and the joy of being cushioned in such a way. And that is creating an alignment between our energy frequencies and all this angelic reality, all this angelic realm of creation that, that resonates with the frequency, to the frequency of bliss. To the frequency of bliss. And interestingly, I keep circling back to Las Vegas. Thank you, Las Vegas. Thank you to everyone. Thank you so much. That one of the messages that's coming in is that because the people who passed on in that event had pre-chosen to be there at that time and to leave in the way that they did. Specifically, because the amount of loving attention that they all receive by leaving in such an unfortunate and dramatic way has manifested for them as a tremendous gift, tremendous spiritual gift, a tremendous energetic gift, in that every thread of love and consideration and sympathy for the families and so forth is having an effect that's empowering all the individuals who are in that space, who have recently left their physiologies and are dealing with what it means to leave so quickly and to not necessarily have put their business in order before they left, and left in that dramatic way. So that was something that they wanted us to know, was that they are so blessed. They are blessed beyond description for me to say, really, what it's like to have millions and millions and millions of people saying prayers for them, like they never guessed. You know, how many people pass on and millions of people say prayers? Not that many on this earth. So, did you want to say something? No? Okay. I'm open to questions, everybody. Anyway, or comments, questions or comments. I love you. All right. So that was part of that, was that level of incredible softness, incredible bliss, incredible sweetness that all those souls are surrounded by, and they're in the hospitals and they're around all the individuals who are hurt. And many, many light workers and many, many people were sending love and blessings and prayers and angels and so forth to help everybody. So that's actually happening. Miracles. Many miracles. And particularly when we talk about the skeletal system, the circulatory system, the endocrine system, we're talking exactly about those individuals whose physiologies were damaged in that event, and they're healing, receiving an upgrade. So their skeletal systems, circulatory systems, endocrine systems, muscular systems, and other digestive, senses of perception, all the areas that were damaged, all those systems are receiving this upgrade of a very, very light, bright, soft, really blissful energy is going into those physiologies to knit the tissues back together and to dissolve the scar tissue and to support at a subtler level of those physiologies, to support the ability of the deeper levels of the mind, emotions, and filtering system to make sense out of this experience. Because the more sense all of us make out of this experience, the more effectively it will be something that supports an explosive or, a great growth of transformation in the field of power of the earth. We need a power shift. This is what we need. And this is what this event did. An opening question. Oh, hello, my sweets. We have someone here from Europe. Bless you. You stayed up late, or maybe you got up early. Can it also be that someone creates so much positivity that he has to experience that much negativity to balance? God, thank you for that question. Yes, it happens. This is really important. Now, one of the first things we did, thank you, that's such a good question. So yeah, this absolutely happens. In fact, case in point. So let's talk about that for a minute, because that's so important. One of the reasons that at the beginning of this session, the first thing we did was stabilize that balance energy for everyone, is because what happens, and we see this a lot, particularly with people who are on a spiritual path, is a desire to really want to identify with the lighter, brighter, softer, more pure energies in creation, and like, oh yeah, well that's where I am, that's where I hang out, that's who I am, and identify with it. That's who I am, that's what I am. I'm guilty of having done this for decades. For decades, my life was devotion. That's it. What Dorothy needs, nothing, just devotion. What everybody else needs, what everybody else needs. And that was great. And I thought I was being really a nice person. And I was taking care of people and, you know, being nice. And what ended up happening was, at some point, I was out of balance, because that's half the engine, but there's the other half too. And so what happened is nature came along and started slapping me really hard. And I'm like, how could this be? I don't drink, I don't smoke. I could go through the laundry list, right? You know, I live a life of absolute purity. I'm a good mother to my kids, I blah, blah, blah. You know, but boy, one thing after another was coming down the pipes, and I couldn't make sense of it, because I thought that what I was supposed to be doing was being like a living angel. And what I was supposed to be doing was coming into the embodiment of divinity by knowing my power. And you can't, the thing about all the different forms of creation is they all have some limits. They all have certain limits. Human beings range from the darker, hellish fields of creation. The animals, right? The animals are, they evolve up through all the different animal forms. They come to human form. And then as a human form, they have to evolve through various phases and learn various lessons that are part of the human experience and condition, and eventually come forth into a more angelic divine forms. But there's been a roadblock. There's been a log jam near the top on Earth for some time. So we're going to deal with that in the next webinar. But for now, getting back to this webinar, what that means is that animals can only go so far. The evolution of consciousness can only go so far in the animal physiology. And then it's necessary to take a more evolved physiology. And as humans, we can only go so far in this state. And then at some point, we're going to take those higher physiologies. Or sometimes we go back and forth. Some of us can move. All of you are getting better already. But the thing is that the goal is not to reject one side for the sake of the other. It's to take a point that's so balanced in the middle that it's possible to expand consciousness to the point of embracing both sides simultaneously, the whole ball of wax, the whole picture. And that's something that can only be done in the human form. And it's a very special thing to be able to do, because it allows us to be the living expressions of the quality of being, source of creation, which is expansive. It expands. We know the whole universe expands, right? So that ability to expand is what humans bring to the story of divine expression. That mother of creation, the source of creation, there's nothing to learn. There's nothing to expand. Everything that's ever been, everything that ever will be, you can't go anywhere from there. So being said, okay, well, let's create some life form that can. So this is human being. You can learn, as a human, you can learn things, you can have surprises, you can grow in ways that you hadn't ever been before. It's amazing. But this point of finding that center balance, we're going to go back to the center point of balance now, and feeling into the group, feeling that center point. When the point is at its like most refined, most perfect state of balance, and all the divine softness that's around us is just laughing and laughing. It's just like, oh, look what they're doing. Ah. Anyway, that refined state of balance, knowingness starts to flow. Pure knowingness, pure isness, pure becoming of being. That's that expansive capacity of the human being. And this is beautiful. I feel it. It's like it's starting. It's very, very delicate, but it's definitely happening. And as that happens, we want to keep our balance, because the more we keep our balance, the more that engine, the dark energies and the light energies are working together to move the force of divine being through our beautiful collective, our healing circle, and into the relative field of expression. This is so powerful. What you're doing is so powerful. It's very important. I need to tell you something now. In our modern day, right now, 2017, October, beginning of October, we have a situation where our technology has moved forward as much as it can in many fronts, short of certain problems that have not yet been solved. There are certain problems, there's certain mathematical problems that have not yet been solved. And these certain problems are, I'm coming at it now from the math angle because it's good to look at it. We're looking at it like a diamond. We're looking at it from all the different facets, right? So there's certain mathematical problems that start out with a certain form, a certain structure. And when you get an answer to the first structure, what happens is branches of answers occur. And then when you get the answer to those, more branches, and then more branches, and more branches. And so these particular types of math, and it's like a family of mathematical problems, sometimes known as P versus NP, or anyway, there are other ways to describe it. Anyway, these problems expand faster than computers can solve them, because computers aren't smart. They're actually dumb, but they can do really simple things fast. So what computers can do is they can do a lot of very, very simple calculations like sort things or something like that quickly. But to deal with a problem like that that comes up and it creates more questions than it answered, and then those create more questions and those create more questions, we're in trouble. That's where you get in trouble, and that's where we're not able to move forward. Well, this is the same, I'm describing this in terms of mathematics because this is the same question. No? Thinking. He's thinking. The mathematician in the group is thinking. Thank you for thinking. Anyway, this is where energy healing is very useful. Because what we're doing in energy healing is we are, as humans, with our balance point. What our balance point does is it lets us make a connection between the field of pure being, which is the solution to all problems, and the symptom, which is on the surface. There is a shortest distance between the field of solutions and the problem. And what we do is, by maintaining balance, and I'm going back to my own balance and feeling it in the group. We want to feel it with everybody. Thank you, everybody. We're able to bring forward the solution. The solution. How do you deal with a problem that gets bigger faster than you can solve it? This has been the problem with science all along, right? This is what I was told when I was a kid. It's like, well, in the field of science, you know, as soon as you answer a question, it opens up half a dozen more questions. So I'm looking at it as a collective. And there's a fractal structure in this, the nature of this problem. Ooh, that's good. Okay, thank you. So we're just doing some reading into it. So fractal in nature, which means just as the mathematical problem is like a fractal, think of it like a tree, right? The one branch goes to more branches that go to more branches. Each branch kind of looks like the original branch. In the same way, the solution can be fractal in nature without being, but it has to be solved in polynomial time. So it has to be something that our modern computers can solve. All right, so we're going to let that simmer for a little bit. So what we do in energy healing is we go to the source of all solutions, and then we offer the antidote over to the source of creation. And we say, okay, Mother of the universe, center, Son of creation, you're radiating knowingness everywhere. What's the solution? What's the solution to this problem? And in this case, we're looking at a couple of different things. We've got the solution to the math problem. We've got the solution to the power transformation on Earth. And that means for everybody here. And for everybody individually in the group, we've got the problem of whatever health considerations any one person has, health considerations, manifestation considerations, relationship considerations, all the different considerations. And then we have the other situation. I'm just defining it right now, which is how do we navigate our ship through the subtle realms of creation in such a way as to support our maximum ability to refine senses of perception so that we come out of this webinar tonight at a higher level of refinement and capability of functioning in the subtle realms, both as individuals and as a collective, than we came in. I think that's where we need to focus. Thanks, you guys. So what's happening is our healing circle is reminding me a little bit of a womb or something. It's a circle. And we have all this softness that's built up around our circle. And the softness is a very, very refined, very delicate kind of celestial energy. And there's interface between the individual consciousnesses of everyone in the circle and our collective consciousnesses together. And this lovely, refined, delicate, fairy flower, angelic energy that's around us. Now, I'm looking at that angelic energy and I'm saying to you, angelic energy, are you not our own self expanded into this realm? And what happens when I said it in words, but I also was like feeling it and then releasing it. And what I feel is this, it's like a humming, like a pulse. Again, a pulse is moving back and forth between our group and all this light that's around our group. And the answer is, it's just like yes and yes and yes and yes, but there's an integrative energy is working its way into the junction between our healing circle and all this light that's around us. So a lot of integration is taking place. And as the integration takes place, we're reflecting, interestingly, some of the things that we saw the center sun reflect. And one of those is the light of our being is radiating out into this field of, you could think of it like we're in a soup or an ocean of light, and it's lighting up nodes in the field that have specific intelligences, knowledge, resources that we need in order to navigate our way through this fine field of creation. It's a little bit, it reminds me of the part in the story of the Ramayana where Ram has been sent into exile with his wife and his brother, and they go into the forest. You know, he was supposed to become the king like tomorrow. And instead, in the night before tomorrow, he found out, oh no, you're not going to become king. You're going to be a beggar in the forest. So off he goes to the forest, not dissuaded, and finds himself in the place where all the great rishis and seers and sages and holy men, the greatest holy beings of all time, reside in the forest. And this is where we are. We're in that forest. We're in that space where we can find the intelligence and access to those forms of creation that are specifically capable of expressing levels of truth which are so great, which are so high, which are so refined. This is ancient knowledge, ancient truth, and they're showing how they form themselves into a kind of a coherent structure with nodes, and those forms of creation that are specialized in different aspects of knowledge are sitting at the different points and they interact. And what's important for us to know is how these points of knowledge interact with each other, because their sophisticated communication system is part of our lesson of integration. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to look and tell you what I see. Wow. Wow. So cool. I'm seeing two in particular, and they're showing how they produce resonations of energy that reflect off of each other. It's like it's a little bit like instruments in a symphony that are tuned to frequencies. This is very interesting. Okay, this gets to a nitty-gritty of something that musicians know that usually nobody else knows. So thank you. What they're doing is they're forcing me to draw on the area of the body of knowledge that I have the most information about in the relative. And that's not math, by the way. So I wish it was, but hey. But so what happens in an orchestra is if instruments attempt to tune to each other, what happens is they never actually come into absolute attunement. They come into as close attunement as possible so that if one of them is playing a note of, say, a half a second long, and the other one is also playing a note of a half a second long, the value of not being in tune is longer than a half a second. If the two instruments try to play together and they're out of tune, you get a sound, and that means one of them is a little higher and one of them is a little lower. But when they get more and more in tune, the gets slower. So it's and it goes slower, slower, slower. And when those waves of discord become slower than the actual length of the notes that the musicians are playing, then they're in tune. That's why people say, oh, well, it's close enough for jazz. Have you ever heard that saying? Why? Because a lot of times in jazz, the musicians are playing so quickly, the notes are flipping by so fast, that even if they're a little bit out of tune, it actually doesn't matter because the human ear doesn't hear it as out of tune. So I'm having to describe you this thing kind of, it's technical-ish, but in detail, because what these nodes, these forms of creation are explaining is that they come as close in tune as they can, but they never, ever, any of them are fully exactly in tune. And it is actually their lack of intonation that provides the interest in their interactions and provides something that allows their experience of communication to be rich. Because they're functioning at such a level of creation that they literally know everything. They know everything. So there's not, the excitement isn't that, well, I know everything and you know everything, so we don't even have to talk to each other. That's not fun. The fun part is, I know it, but I know it slightly differently from what you know it. But we're so close that every interaction is harmonious. Every interaction feels sweet. It feels right. It feels balanced. So I'm going to ask them then, well, I'm asking, it looks like what you're telling me is that this is really another way of looking at this element of balance, is it not? Like being in tune is like being balanced with each other. We've got our frequencies going at the same speed. Oh, if I can do it with my fingers. They're saying that there's a level of absolute balance. And for us as a group, what we need is for that level of absolute balance to be stabilized in the heart chakra. So that's happening now. Okay, so I'm just feeling in my own heart chakra. And it's interesting, I'm just, all I can do for you guys is like be the other eye open, right? So everybody feeling it the way they feel it. But what I'm feeling as the heart chakra is undergoing a level of balance in its resonation capacity and the way it moves is I'm also feeling little tiny, tiny places where they're like little bubbles of pain. And it's not, I'm not feeling like pain, but there are these little spots. There's spots, and it almost feels like it's a little bit in the lungs, maybe in the lymphatic system. That's where I'm feeling it. And so these respiratory system and lymphatic systems are both being affected by this balance that's being, is is taking place, integration of balance in the heart, which is of the finest capacity. This balance is so fine. I've been working with balance for a long, long, long time, and I understand what the balance feels like when it's at the finest. It's at the gap. It's at the point where the absolute meets the relative. But this just pushed it past the gap into the field of being. Infinite balance. Infinite balance. And what's being communicated to me by these nodes, by these forms of creation that are at a very high level of understanding, is that it's possible in the human physiology. Oh, they know all sorts of things about the human physiology. I'm getting downloads. Hope you guys are too. It's possible in the human physiology to have one location in the body sitting at a point of absolute balance and still be able to enjoy slight variations in the other areas. And I seem to be getting a download about a very sort of sophisticated system of understanding how to structure those resonations in the other nodes of the physiology, everywhere from the other major chakras to sub-chakras, minor chakras, down to, oh, help me guys, there's a word for, it starts with an SH. Shrotas, thank you, shrotas. Down to the shrotas, the many, many shrotas of the physiology. And it's looking very much like the multiple varieties of solutions to the problems, the math problems. I'm going to give you an example for those who are not familiar. I know some of you are familiar, so bear with me. Don't mean to be boring, but there's a problem called the traveling salesman problem. He starts in one city. He's got to travel to any number of other cities, once in each city and back to his original position, using the least amount of gas, using the shortest distance. And the thing is that you can set up your system of cities infinite number of ways, but home is always balanced. It is that point of absolute balance. And the interesting thing is, if we look at a road map in our country or something, you'll say, well, there's a city here, and there's a city here, and there's a city here, and a city here. In a problem like this, those cities can be anywhere. They can be moving even, as long as the distance between them remains constant. So this is important. This is important, because what the intelligences in the field of this field of light in which we're functioning is that this allows for infinite flexibility. As long as their relationships remain constant, they have absolute autonomy of where they move. Okay, beautiful, that's beautiful, thank you for that. So we're sending those waves of gratitude back, and the waves of gratitude are reflecting off of those nodes, and they're going right back into our physiologies, down to the molecular level, and they're reflecting back to our ancestors. And they're saying it's the same with your ancestors, that in the DNA, there's this tremendous flexibility in the physiology, and that can, as long as the relationship between the ancestors is harmonious, as long as you have that balance, that absolute balance point as the center, then there can be all sorts of anomalies and different nuances of different relationships, and everything stays balanced and healthy. And so I'm asking, if this is a healing that's going to the ancestors, how can we support a level of coherence in what would be our personal collective? Because each person in the group is the living collective of all their ancestors. How can we support a level of balance that will allow our physiologies to take on that level of autonomy and flexibility, that we can move ourselves at will, we can restructure ourselves at will, we can heal ourselves? I'm asking. I'm waiting for the answer. I'm going to tell you when it comes. Thanks for waiting with me. First thing I'm seeing is they weren't expecting that question. I thought they knew everything. Well, there's a rearrangement taking place. And the rearrangement that's taking place is taking place in the dark realms of creation. So the dark realms, which have been used to functioning in a certain way in order to make our engine of the universe work, are having to, they look like they're kind of almost like they scattered for a minute, and they were kind of like skittering around like cockroaches. You know, they were kind of restructuring themselves in order to accommodate this. And what I'm seeing in the restructuring in the dark realms of creation and those forms of manifested being which are outside the realm of our gross senses is greater orderliness. Good. Greater orderliness. And I'm seeing a really intense color of green. And I don't know why I'm seeing that, except for you guys are seeing green, but I'm not seeing green. Anyway, the green, it balances vata. It's for living, growing things. It's a very sort of life-giving color. But what I'm seeing is that this restructuring that's taking place in the more hellish, denser levels of creation, where the intelligences there work with illusion to make their intentions manifested, are shifting over to perform actions which have a more life-supporting effect. Good. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So our love and our gratitude, even to the dark beings of creation, even to the destructive laws of nature of creation. Wow. And now I'm feeling a shifting that feels like it's happening behind us, along the back and along the spine and behind us. And there's a kind of a swirling energy, and it is the interface between the darker energies and the lighter energies, again, are kind of giving rise to an upsurge of power, an upsurge of force, of consciousness, movement, expansion of consciousness. And it's kind of intense right now. I'm feeling that really flowing. And there is bliss in it. So the angelic or Davic forms of creation are enjoying the bliss in it. And the less angelic forms of creation are feeling the power in it. And so the power is meeting the sweetness. Remember that point I made at the beginning of the session, that if a person who's in an enlightened state, even the destructive laws of nature serve his intention. So what I'm feeling is a kind of like a goosebump kind of feeling along the back, and it seems to be affecting the nervous system, definitely opening channels of flow of life force through the nervous system, through the brain, particularly in the back. I'm feeling a kind of an activation at the cerebral cortex area. No, cerebral cortex. Sorry, cerebellum. Get my medical terms straight here. Not a trained doctor, thank you, but cerebellum, which is that part of the brain in the very back which is responsible for the filtration of information. It's almost like a whole brain in itself. I took a class on brain physiology and learned that there are as many neural connections in the cerebellum as there are like in the whole rest of your brain. It's amazing. It's like a little mini brain inside your brain. So the cerebellum is experiencing a kind of a fine-tuning in order to accommodate the ability to expand consciousness, to embrace the darker and the lighter forms of creation at a wider range, at a deeper level of natural law, you could say, at a more expanded level of natural law. I'm feeling what I would call people's causal level of physiology. So these two deep levels are being. And then causal is like the deepest, most, and yet manifest level of the physiology. So right there, what's happening is we're bumping up against a little bit of karma for people in our group, a little bit of karma. So some stuff that we have to work on here for our group as an individual in order to lift ourselves up to the next level so that we can go out and do even more exploring. And so the green is there, that sweet, supportive growth energy is in the causal body. It's definitely manifesting as a quality of freshness in the causal body. And what I'm inferring from that, and I'm getting a confirmation on it, is that there are some karmas that we have carried for so long that they're almost a little bit stale, if that word is appropriate, that sometimes when karmas are carried for a long, long, long time, all of our being kind of grows up around them, and we don't notice that they're there. We get cozy and comfortable with those particular limitations in the field of self. And those particular imbalances, or we could say limitations, that we're dealing with as humans. And each person in the group, it's in like slightly different locations, but that's okay. That's part of the symphony, right? Because we have this, one of the things we've done in today's course is we've opened up this level of coordination and perfection of balance so that we can actually, it illuminates so that we can see those little spots where the intonation's slightly off. And so I'm asking, remember earlier it was like, well, sometimes the intonation has to be a little bit off so that the beings of creation can enjoy differences and they can enjoy coordination between each other. And I'm saying, well, do we have to hold on to these because of that? The answer is no, 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 no. At the level that we are, in fact, this is necessary to get into those really, really old, deep, deep elements of karma that in order to support, we won't run out. The answer is don't worry, there's more. There's always more. But for us, and they're saying we need an intention, because we need to understand that ourselves as a group have the intention. So I'm offering, what I'm doing is I'm saying, oh, we as a group need an intention. Fine. So I offer, what should our intention be? Back to the Mother of Creation. Mother of Creation, how would you like to use this group for maximum support of everything in creation? How can we best serve you? How can we best support the field of humanity? And how can we best support our world? And how can we best support our beautiful universe? I'm feeling the group coming close. It's like we're coming in close to each other. And there's as we come close, there's a quality of light that's really, really light, but it's a little bit warm. It's like ever so slightly goldeny, ever so slightly warm. It's like a warm white light. And as we come together, this warm white light is, it's a quality of like brotherhood or friendship, which is extremely tender and intimate and refreshing at the same time. And there's a peace in it. There's a peace. I think the peace is, I'm seeing that's part of the deal, is that we have this capacity with this group. It's like, she's like, oh, well, how, if you're really in tune with each other, what can best be done? And one of the things that we have a capability of that we're learning as humans, we get to learn new things, says we're learning that one of our capabilities is to produce qualities of consciousness which are values that promote peacefulness, that promote peace. We can go into dark areas. We can, with our collective, travel to areas of the field of creation where there is no peace, and trust that we have the ability to create peace. So wherever people are troubled, wherever there's pain, wherever there's discord, wherever there's an intention to break down the structure of society and culture and well-being, to break down infrastructure. And there's one of the things that's coming forward is be very useful for us to start by supporting the building of infrastructure to provide resources and possibilities, opportunities for people everywhere on Earth, everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. So that's just happening. It's interesting. It's as if our boat suddenly took a direction and is going in the direction of this creation of this thing. And I feel as if there's a closeness in what we're doing right now with particular areas of our world, particularly places like Africa, where the infrastructures and the resources for the opportunity for people to really grow into their full potential are lacking. Also areas where a little bit of our love is also going to the people in Bali. Shout out to Bali, because it's a very, very hard, trying time for the people in Bali right now. There are so many hundreds of thousands of people are displaced from their homes, and they don't know when they will ever be able to go back. And it's a very intense situation, actually, that's going on there. It's kind of quiet and it hasn't been as much in the news, but it's a thing. There are also places within Earth's structure, and we've done this before. Oh, and I'm looking at my clock. We're at our time too, but there are places within our Earth where the balance of nature's intelligence has been disrupted. And those are also places where we need to work. So I'm thinking these are really good spots for us to pick up tomorrow, because we've already come to our hour. Thank you, everyone. It's very interesting. Sometimes the webinars, I get a lot of questions, and in this time, when I only got one question, it's interesting. But I feel as if the work we did was really very abstract this time, and very interesting. It was definitely kind of more way out there than some of our sessions have been more practical. But everybody got, oh, thank you, darling. We're getting thank yous coming in. Everybody got a whole series of physical healings. Thank you. You guys are the best. We love you. So enjoy those physical modifications that took place in the body, the balance that took place, as I recall, skeletal system, circulatory system, endocrine system, lymphatic system. There was a lot of work with the cerebellum, and there was some, as I recall, there was some kind of work that happened in the center core of the body as well. Causal body modifications took place, and oh, beautiful. We've got people saying, yes, they're experiencing upgrades. Lots of beautiful comments. Thank you, everybody. Oh, you're so sweet. You're so dear to me. Thank you. For all of you on the subscription program, I hope we'll get to see you. Oh, yeah. Oh, Las Vegas is saying a big thank you to absolutely everybody. Thank you, Las Vegas. Thank you, my beautiful ones. Great, great, powerful spiritual healers in that area. Absolutely amazing people. It's really a privilege to be working so closely, that we're all working together. So yeah, for those on the subscription program, if you can join me tomorrow, please come and join me. For those that are local, please come and join me locally. Parking is in the south parking lot of FHS, and I hope that's easy enough to find. Our gate is on the southwest side of the parking lot. And so please come join me if you can. And thank you to everyone who did come join tonight. It's very exciting. And we'll see you all tomorrow, and we'll do this. We will continue from here. So we don't know where our boat's going to go next, but we may, I don't know. Guess we'll find out. I love you. Thank you for being on this amazing adventure with me.